So I figured today I'd make a video. I'd go over my rack that I have here by my splitter and the cutting rack. So basically what I have here is a bunch of 3-inch square 80/20. It's aluminum. These are all drops that my buddy got from the place I used to work at. Basically they're all 5 foot long, so it ends up being about 5 feet wide, and it's about 5.5 feet deep. And I just cut the legs kind of to make about the height of what I figured worked best, which I made it so it's just basically a little bit below my waist. The spacing that we have in here, I mean, it's fine. I mean, it is a little on the excessive side. It is not light, even though it is aluminum. It is still extremely heavy. Could I have put bigger spacing in there, use less of them? Yeah, I could have. That's just kind of how we threw it together. I guess if you cut a lot of small stuff, keeps the small stuff from falling in. And I found, like, when I do bigger stuff, I'll actually stand the bigger stuff on end, because I might add some boards on the side here so that way I can pile it up more, so that way it doesn't roll off. Because when you are cutting, you know, a lot of this smaller diameter wood and you're actually putting them on here the long way, you know, you get your stack up high, it does have a tendency of rolling off the edge a little bit once in a while. So eventually I'm going to add some risers on the side just so that it holds that on there. It is a little bit of a far reach to go all the way across from the splitter, but I find I can reach usually about 2 rows back, which is about halfway. And then if I use my hookaroon, I can hook the rest of them and pull them over and keep splitting. So, but it's not too bad, because usually by the time I get back part way on the rack that I can't quite reach them anymore, usually by then I got a bucket full. So I usually shut the splitter off, I shove a pile of them over, and then I'll go back at splitting. But I'm gonna get this rack full here cut up, and then I will come back and I will go over a video with this here a little bit more of what I used and what sizes, and basically I'll figure it out and about how much lumber I used and what it was. I used all 8-foot lumber when I made that, and everything was figured out to minimal drops on 8-foot lumber. So we'll be back with that shortly. So it is hot out. I got some cut and got to the point of I was way too hot cutting, and so I had a few left. I just pulled them off. But what I have is, in this between the rack and the staging area, I used 29 8-foot 2x6s, and then I had 3 8-foot 2x4s, which I think I still have a pretty good sized drop of the 2x4 in the shed. But of all the other stuff, I did not have much for drops left, because I have these here uprights. There's one on the front and back, and there's 24 all the way across and 8 feet. Them are 32 inches long. And then I have 24 pieces that I connected them with, and I just stayed down. I think that's probably about 1.5 inches. Well, about 2 inches I stayed down. And then the one on the bottom is up 2 inches, just for consistency. So if they got flipped around while I was making them, it didn't matter. And then I just screwed them together. Now I ran my screws in from this side, knowing that I would be cutting here, and they're screwed in this side, being cutting in here. So the heads of the screws are never going to be where the saw is going to hit. So these pieces are cut at 27 inches long, and I think it takes 8 2x6s to make all the 24 that I took, and you'll have 8 drops at 15 inches. And then I have 2, a top and a bottom, 2x6 on the front and the back. That's kind of what holds all the spacing. So them are cut at 94 inches long. So at 94 inches long, that basically gives you 4 4-inch drops, which is very minimal waste. And then when you get to the log deck back here, that took, let's see, that took 9 2x6s, because if you look at it, I have a little short 2x4 that I stubbed in there. That's actually what goes down in there to keep it latched so it doesn't slide back. So I kept this center 2x6 is cut at 63 inches. So that one cut at 63, stubbing in a 2x4 there. The drop piece that came off of that is actually what I used for my main leg. And then I have my inside and outside one are cut at 72 inches. And then I do believe the drops from that are on the inside here. Basically sandwiching together, screwing a bunch of it together. And then I had the 2x4s in here, or 2x6s I should say, are cut at 53 inches. So with all them dimensions, and then I took one of the chunks on this side and on that side is probably what I had cut off from my crossboards that helped hold it together. I just put them on there just as a brace, basically to give it some strength this way when you load it up with logs. And I mean, I've loaded this up pretty good. I mean, I haven't gotten any bunch of big monsters on there yet, but I know it'll still hold it. And then basically when I screwed this 2x6 on, this board here sits on top, and you can see that it's just a little bit below this, so that way a log, if it rolls up here, you actually have to physically get it to roll over that. My old rack, this and these boards were level, and occasionally I'd find that if I was loading it and you had a nice round straight log, it would kind of roll on there, and sometimes it would just roll right off the front side. But that works pretty good. Having that there kind of gives it a little something to bump against and stop. But it is working good so far. I mean, I do probably have, I'm sure I've hit it a few times in a couple spots. But it is nice being on the concrete here. So all this area can get cleaned up every day when I'm done. So there's 10 2x4s that I cut at 19 inches long, which are right here. And you can see, basically I just screwed them on just to hold these two sections together before I screwed this all together. That way I had a consistent 3.5 inch space where I was going to be cutting. And that is down about 8 inches from the top. And then it just comes down here a little ways so I could get an extra screw in there. I did that just to minimize the amount of waste of the 2x4s. And I just had an extra little bit of 2x4, which you never have enough laying around. At least that way, if I had to replace one of them or if I needed to add a 2x4 on somewhere for something, I could. So my rack, it may not be fast, but the nice thing is the efficiency of cutting, being that it's at pretty much waist level. Yes, I do have to lift the saw up a little bit, but I find lifting the saw up is easier than if I get a bunch of bigger rounds on here. At least when I got bigger rounds, I'm at the right height. I'm not bending over to pick them up. So I'm at the height that I can get a hold of them. And I literally just got to pick it up 2 inches to clear this, and then turn around and set it on my rack here, which is basically at waist height. So it's not a lot of bending over. I mean, yes, the saw can get heavy by the end of the day. If you start with a big saw and you're going to cut all day, by the end of the day, go to a smaller saw. And I found a smaller saw works probably just as good doing it this way as what the big saw is. Yes, the big saw is going to cut faster, but you're only talking a couple cuts and you're putting the saw down, moving rounds, get another one in and just keep going. But this works out good for me. So this is the way I'm going to keep doing it. I'm sure you're going to see a bunch more of it. And so far, my sawdust tote is working pretty good. It's getting a pile in there. And once that one's full, I do have another one. Once I have 2 of them full, all the sawdust will probably just get scraped out with the slash and the bark, and it'll get put in the bin, because I only need about 2 totes worth of sawdust for doing the chicken coop. When I do the chicken coop, then I'll have an empty tote for sawdust. I'll fill it back up again. So, but this is going to be my setup. I'm going to keep going with it, keep chugging along, keep filling my bins. And I mean, my goal is to try to do about 2 cord a week, which is, if I can get at it every other day and get a half a cord done, which takes probably 2 to 3 hours depending. If I can get that done, I'll be on track for getting a fair amount done. As of right now, I'm a little behind, just for the simple fact of it's not fun cutting in the heat. We got a bunch of cooler weather, and I was really enjoying it, and I was hoping to give her hell and get a bunch done, but this week it just kind of got warm and I didn't get a lot done. So I'm going to try getting this stuff split up here. I might do that tomorrow when I have some time. Maybe I'll feel up to it. I'll get a little bit more cut. But right now, I'm going to load the deck up so that way it's set for tomorrow. If I get more time to get out here, get that pile split, get more cuts. So thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.